That sinking feeling when their name appears on your screen, the exhaustion after just one conversation. What if you could end that cycle for good? Most people learn the words to say, but 99% miss the final internal shift that actually makes it permanent, dooming them to repeat the pattern forever. Decoding danger. Before we can even think about what to say or do, we have to become master decoders of human behavior. Our bodies are incredibly intelligent. They are constantly gathering data from the world around us, but our busy, logical minds often talk us out of what our intuition is screaming at us. The first step in creating a permanent shield against toxic behavior is to learn to trust that initial, subtle feeling of dissonance. It's that tiny, almost imperceptible moment when someone's words don't match their facial expression or their tone feels slightly off. That's not you being too sensitive. That's you picking up on a crucial data point. Research into nonverbal communication shows us that these incongruent cues are a massive signal that something isn't right. Think about it. Someone pays you a compliment, but their smile doesn't quite reach their eyes, or there's a flicker of a sneer, a micro expression of contempt that vanishes in an instant. Your brain might register the positive words, but your body registers the hidden negativity. This is the first signal. We have to train ourselves to notice these patterns, not just as isolated incidents, but as a constellation of behaviors. Another powerful cue is what we call conversational hijacking. You're sharing something you're excited or concerned about, and within seconds, the conversation has been rerouted back to them, their problems, their victories. They use your story as a launch pad for their own monologue. It's a subtle but constant invalidation of your experience. It communicates, non-verbally, that your world is merely a backdrop for theirs. When this happens repeatedly with the same person, it's not an accident. It's a strategy. It's how they maintain control and centrality. They create an environment where your needs are always secondary, conditioning you to expect less and less space in your own interactions. It's a slow erosion of your sense of importance, and it's incredibly effective. Then there are the verbal cues that fly under the radar, often disguised as jokes or brutal honesty. These are the passive-aggressive jabs, the backhanded compliments, the comments that are specifically designed to target a known insecurity of yours. They'll say something cutting, and then, when they see your pained reaction, they'll quickly follow it with, "Oh, I'm just kidding. You can't take a joke." This is a classic manipulation tactic. It allows them to deliver the blow and then immediately abdicate responsibility by framing your valid emotional response as a personal failing. It puts you in a double bind. Either you swallow the hurt and pretend it was funny, or you object and are labeled as humorless or overly dramatic. Either way, they win. Recognizing this pattern is like seeing the code behind the matrix. You stop reacting to the surface-level words and start seeing the underlying intent, which is almost always about power and control. Finally, pay close attention to how your body feels, not just during the interaction, but after. This is perhaps the most reliable piece of data you have. Do you leave a conversation with a specific person feeling drained, anxious, confused, or smaller than you were before? Do you find yourself replaying their words over and over, trying to decipher their hidden meaning? Healthy, reciprocal interactions leave you feeling seen, heard, and often energized. Toxic interactions are parasitic. They are an energy transfer where you are the sole donor. This physical and emotional exhaustion is a biological signal. It's your nervous system telling you that it has been in a state of high alert, managing a perceived threat. Don't ignore that. That feeling of depletion is your internal alarm system, and learning to honor it is the first, most critical step in taking back your power and deciding who gets access to your precious energy. It's not about judgment, it's about observation and data collection. You are simply becoming a scientist of your own social life. Building boundaries. Once you've learned to decode the signals, the temptation is to jump straight into crafting the perfect sentence to shut someone down. But that's like building a roof before you've laid the foundation. The most powerful boundaries are not external walls we build against others. They are internal standards we set for ourselves. A boundary isn't about controlling someone else's behavior. You can't. A boundary is a clear declaration of what you will do in response to their behavior to protect your own peace and well-being. It's a fundamental shift from, "You need to stop doing that," to, "When that happens, I will remove myself from the situation." See the difference? The first statement puts the power in their hands, waiting for them to change. The second one places the power squarely in yours. It's about your action, your choice, your self-preservation. This internal work begins with giving yourself permission. For many of us, especially those who are naturally empathetic or were raised to be people pleasers, the idea of prioritizing our own emotional state over someone else's can feel incredibly selfish. We've been conditioned to believe that being a good person means absorbing discomfort to keep the peace. But this is a flawed premise. True kindness and compassion cannot flow from an empty vessel. You have to give yourself the radical permission to matter as much as anyone else in the room. This means accepting that your peace is a non-negotiable asset. It is not a luxury, it is a necessity for a healthy life. Your energy is a finite resource, and you have the absolute right to be the gatekeeper of it. This isn't an act of aggression, it's an act of profound self-respect. To make this practical, you need to define your non-negotiables. Sit down and really think about it. What behaviors will you no longer tolerate? Is it unsolicited criticism? Is it being spoken to in a condescending tone? Is it having your personal time disrespected? Be specific. Write them down. These become the bedrock of your new internal constitution. For example, a non-negotiable might be, I will no longer engage in conversations that devolve into gossip or negativity. This isn't a rule you announce to the world. It's a quiet, firm promise you make to yourself. So the next time a conversation veers in that direction, your internal compass is already set. You know what you have to do, not because you're angry, but because you are honoring a commitment to your own well-being. You can then choose your strategy, change the subject, state you're not comfortable, or simply exit the conversation. The final piece of this internal foundation is detaching your self-worth from their approval. Toxic individuals thrive on the power they derive from being the arbiters of your value. They keep you in a state of uncertainty, offering just enough validation to keep you hooked, but always withholding it enough to keep you striving for it. The moment you stop seeking their approval is the moment their power over you evaporates. This is the real work. It means finding your sense of value from within, from your own integrity, your own accomplishments, your own values. It means building up a support system of people who genuinely see and celebrate you, so you're not starving for the crumbs of validation from an unreliable source. When you are secure in your own worth, their criticism loses its sting and their praise loses its addictive quality. You become an observer of their behavior rather than a participant in their drama. This internal solidity is the unshakable foundation upon which all effective external actions are built. Verbal vault? Okay, the internal foundation is set. You're decoding cues and you've anchored your sense of self-worth. Now, let's build the verbal toolkit. This is about having simple, elegant, and repeatable phrases that create space and enforce your boundaries without escalating the drama. The goal here is not to win an argument. In fact, the goal is to refuse to participate in the argument altogether. Toxic people feed on emotional reactions. Your anger, your hurt, your defensiveness, that's their fuel. The most powerful thing you can do is to give them nothing to work with. This is the art of becoming a gray rock. You become as boring and unresponsive as a plain gray rock. You don't justify, argue, defend, or explain. This is where most people go wrong. They get drawn into a lengthy explanation of why their boundary is valid. That explanation is just an invitation for the other person to debate and dismantle your feelings. Your first and most effective tool is the neutral, factual statement. This technique is brilliant in its simplicity. When they try to pull you into an emotional vortex with an accusation or a loaded question, you respond only with a simple, verifiable fact. For example, if they say, "You're always late, you clearly don't care about my time," instead of defending yourself, "I'm not always late, there was traffic," you simply state, "The meeting is scheduled for 10 a.m. If they text you a long, dramatic message, instead of engaging with the drama, you can respond with, "I'll be there in 5 minutes." You are deliberately refusing to engage with the emotional bait. This can feel unnatural at first, but it is incredibly disarming. It gives their drama no oxygen, and they often don't know what to do next. You are communicating that you will only operate on the level of facts, not on the level of their manufactured emotional chaos. The next level is the clear and concise boundary statement. This is for when the behavior is more direct and needs to be addressed. The formula is simple. "I am not willing to discuss that, be spoken to that way, continue this conversation." Or, "I won't be participating in this kind of discussion." Notice the use of I statements. You're not telling them what to do, you are stating what you will or will not do. There is no room for argument. After you state your boundary, the most important part is to hold the silence. Do not rush to fill it. Do not soften the blow. Let the boundary hang in the air. They will likely try to push back, to test it. They might say, "Oh, you're being so dramatic," or "I was just trying to help." This is where you employ the broken record technique. You don't need a new line. You just calmly repeat your original boundary. As I said, I'm not going to discuss this. The calm, firm repetition communicates that you are unshakable and that the boundary is non-negotiable. Finally, you must master the graceful exit. Sometimes the only winning move is not to play. You have to have exit lines ready for conversations, phone calls, or even physical situations. These don't need to be dramatic. Simple is best. I have to go now. This is all the time I have for this topic today. I'm going to end this call now, but I'll talk to you next week. It was good to see you, but I need to get going. The key is to state it as a fact, not a request. You are not asking for permission to leave. You are informing them that you are leaving. Then you follow through immediately. You hang up the phone, you walk away. The follow-through is everything. It teaches people that your words have weight and that your boundaries are real. Each time you do this, you are building a reputation for yourself. A reputation as someone whose limits are to be respected, not because you are aggressive, but because you are clear, consistent, and calm. Energy audit, this is the final piece, the one that makes the change permanent. Everything we've discussed so far, decoding cues, building an internal foundation, using verbal tools, is about managing external interactions. It's a brilliant defense system. But if you stop there, you will spend your entire life playing defense. You will constantly be on the lookout, managing, deflecting, and protecting. The ultimate goal is not to get better at dealing with toxic people. It's to create a life where they are no longer drawn to you in the first place. This requires one final deep look inward. It requires a comprehensive energy audit. You have to ask yourself a tough question. What is it about my energy, my patterns, or my unhealed parts that makes me an attractive target for this kind of behavior? This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about empowering yourself to fix the root cause. Toxic individuals are, at their core, energy parasites. They are drawn to specific types of energy sources. One of the biggest is a lack of personal boundaries combined with a high degree of empathy. If you are someone who overgives, who feels responsible for everyone's happiness, and who has difficulty saying no, you are essentially a 5-star, all-you-can-eat buffet for an energy vampire. Your audit starts here. Where in your life are you consistently giving more than you are receiving? Where are you saying yes when your entire body is screaming no? You have to identify these energy leaks and begin to plug them. This means getting comfortable with disappointing people. It means accepting that your job is not to manage the emotional reactions of other adults. When you start reserving your energy for people and activities that are reciprocal, you fundamentally change your energetic signature. Ultimately, this audit is about curating your life so intentionally that your very presence communicates your standards. When you are filled with a sense of your own purpose, when your schedule is packed with things that energize you, when your inner circle is composed of healthy, supportive, and respectful people, you become nutritionally deficient for toxic individuals. They take one look at your life and realize there's nothing for them to feed on. There is no drama to latch onto, no insecurity to exploit, no void to fill. They simply lose interest and move on in search of an easier meal. This is the profound, silent power that changes everything. You don't have to announce your boundaries anymore because your life itself becomes the boundary. You protect your peace not by fighting battles, but by cultivating a garden so beautiful and so well tended that the weeds simply cannot take root. This entire process is not about fighting a war against others. It is a quiet, steady act of building a sanctuary within yourself. It is about realizing that your peace is sacred and that you are its sole guardian. By decoding their signals, you gain awareness. By building your internal foundation, you gain strength. By using your words, you claim your space. And by auditing your energy, you make the change permanent. You stop trying to change them and focus on outgrowing them, creating a life so vibrant and whole that their brand of darkness simply has no place to exist. Be honest, which part of this felt like it was written just for you?